Welcome to Defeat Your Cravings, hosted by Dr. Glenn Livingston, PhD. Glenn has held his doctorate in psychology for more than 30 years and is also a former multi-million-dollar consultant to the big food industry and uses his experience to help you defeat your cravings. This show will help you to focus on dramatically reducing cravings and leave the diet mentality behind, so you can more easily and effortlessly achieve your health, fitness, and body composition goals. Please remember, no doctor-patient relationship is created via this show, and you are responsible for confirming any changes to your diet, health, or psychological routines with an appropriately licensed professional before implementing them. Now, before we get started, if you haven't yet downloaded the free smartphone app to access dozens of these recordings all in one place, as well as to avail yourself of a confidential community for support, motivation, and assistance, please visit the podcast link on defeatyourcravings.com as soon as possible. And now, here's your host, Dr. Glenn Livingston.
It's a very good Dr. Glenn Livingston with one of my master coaches, Fiona.
Hi, Glenn. How are you?
I'm good. Are you over in Scotland still?
Yes, I'm over in Scotland. Yeah.
For those of you that don't know Fiona, she's been working with us for, what is it, Fiona, 3 years now?
3.5 years, I think.
3.5, yeah. She might have been the first coach that I hired to see clients for me. Definitely a star. Definitely one of the first people that I think of if I want to get a different perspective or learn something myself about what's going on with our clients, or if I get stuck with someone, I think of Fiona to talk to. She's had 8 years working for a major weight loss organization before she worked with us. And Fiona, could you just say a word or two about your own background?
Yeah, so I've worked for a major weight loss company for 7 or 8 years. I had a lifetime of a binge problem. I thought when I started working for that company that it would be a lot easier, but it really wasn't. I was just kind of pretended to be that healthy person, but I had this kind of secret life, and it just got worse and worse until I found your book, Glenn. And that's when everything changed. And I realised that it was possible to change, because I spent my whole life telling other people that it wasn't possible to change. They would always have to live with a problem like that. And then I found out it was possible to change, because it's what's going on in your head. You can change what's going on in your head. It's the pathways in your brain. So that really went a long way to help me.
There's a message of disempowerment in the culture.
Yeah. I mean, I remember telling members that I coached before that they would have to find a way around the problem. They would have to deal with it because they would feel like that for the rest of their life. And that's not true. And I know that now, because I certainly don't feel like that.
Become a different person. What was the rule that made all the difference for you?
No sugar. I've worked with people who have lots of rules. Some people have one rule, some people have lots of rules, some people have several. That's really the one for me. I mean, I've added a couple along the way, but after a while they weren't rules. One was salty snacks. I did that for a while, and then it didn't become a problem anymore, so I don't see it as a rule. But the only one I really needed was the sugar, no sugar.
How do you define that? How do you define sugar?
I eat fresh fruits. I don't think about that. I eat as much as I want. I look at the packets of everything. I don't have to do that now because it's just become the norm. But if anything has more than 3% sugar in it, then I don't eat it. I don't pick it up. I don't buy it. Anything less than that's okay. So that's the way I work it. A lot of people ask me how I do this, but that's not to say that that's the way they need to do it. But that's the way I work it out. Anything more than 3% sugar.
Gotcha. And then the food addiction was gone for you.
Yeah.
Fiona came to me this week and said an abnormal number of clients were saying one particular thing this month. You want to say what that was, Fiona?
Yeah, so I had good clients this month who have been saying, well, I know for a fact they've been really, really successful. Some of them just in a few weeks, really successful. But what they were finding was that they felt like there's a gap in their life or something missing. They actually miss binging. They know that they've made big changes in their life, but they feel like there's something missing. And I thought that would be a good topic to talk about.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Can I frame it a little bit, why I think that's the case, and then we can talk more specifically about what you've been experiencing, what your clients have been saying. Binge eating, in my best estimation and understanding, is an erroneous application of the survival drive. There is a part of our anatomy that decides where our sustenance comes from, what we need to take in to survive. And I think that between the hectic pace of life, which causes people to not keep up their blood sugar on a regular basis, to not eat in a nutritionally sound way, and then to be encouraged to try and diet it off, we wind up in a cycle of restriction. And then from an evolutionary perspective, I think our brain says, well, all of a sudden this hyper palatable food is available and that's the solution. And industry is all too happy to make that available. And so we get bags and boxes and containers and chocolate and pretzels and potato chips and all these incredibly dense sources of calories that aren't really available in nature. And that throws our survival drive for a loop. It thinks that that's where sustenance comes from. It's mixed up what nature had to offer with all of these bags and boxes and containers. And then because there's not enough nutrition in there, you're still in this cycle where the brain is looking for something urgently. And the urgency to find survival needs becomes the first priority of the brain. And your whole psychology organizes around that. Your life becomes about binging and getting over binging and panicking about how you're going to make up for it, and then binging some more, and then thinking about it all the time and planning out what the next binge is going to be. And your whole life, your whole pleasure-seeking apparatus becomes oriented around that. And it's a different way of life. And then when you stop, there is a massive adjustment. It feels abnormal. People get depressed, they get bored, they get agitated. It's a massive adjustment, which you will get through. If you just sit with it, you'll get through it. If you sit with it and you feed your body the right things, you'll get through it. But people think there's something desperately wrong because they have to make that adjustment. There's not something desperately wrong. What you're doing is you're getting used to normality. What you think is normal is not normal. Like all the overstimulation of your senses and the intensity of the calories and excitotoxins that you take in through the bags and boxes and containers and whatever else you binge on. Even things like pasta and pizza and things that don't come in a bag or a box or a container, even those things are not things that were available on the savannah. When you let go of flour or sugar or alcohol or some of these bags and boxes and containers, you're stepping back into normality, and it's kind of like in the Matrix. I think it's the red pill that lets you see reality. You say, holy crap, I thought I lived in this other world, but now I live in this world. And there's an adjustment period after which your survival drive reorients towards healthier things and pursuing your purpose and everything like that. Anyway, I just wanted to frame it like that and let people know that it was normal if they were feeling like they missed binging or they were bored or agitated or angry or upset. You're taking the little red pill and stepping out of the matrix is really what's happening, and it takes a while to adjust. So with that said, with that frame, Fiona, do you want to talk about some of the actual experiences that clients are reporting, and maybe we can talk it through?
Yeah, sure. The first thing I want to say, Glenn, is when you mentioned The Matrix, I have never seen that film, but I have been on so many different courses where they show clips of The Matrix and they show the red pill or the blue pill or whatever it is, and I keep meaning to watch the film. I must watch the film.
It's the coolest movie that I didn't understand. Some comedian said that. It's worth watching.
That's on my to-do list. Yeah, so people are saying that there's a gap in their life, there's something missing, they miss binging. And I think it boils down to the fact that it gave them comfort. Without the food obsession, they feel bored because, as you said, it takes up so much time. It can take up every waking moment. You're thinking about what you did the day before, what you wish you hadn't done the day before, how you can stop that, what you're going to eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, what snacks you're going to have. You've got a plan to eat all this healthy food, and then it goes all wrong. You start eating the binge food, so you're constantly thinking about food. And then maybe later on at night, you're constantly trying to stop thinking about food. You're trying to stop yourself eating the food. So it's like a constant cycle. It never ends. It's every waking moment can be taken up with this like food obsession. Once that's gone, they've got all this time on their hands. What did they do with that time? They're kind of lost. It filled a hole, it gave them comfort, it was secretive, and I think that's a big thing. It was their secret, and people like to have a secret, even though that kind of secret. And the way I've worked it out, it's a secret because the people who love you and care for you wouldn't understand, but it's still kind of exciting having a secret. So now you don't have that anymore.
Interesting. Yeah, I hadn't really thought of it like that. Say a little bit more. Why do you think that it's so enticing for these people to have a secret?
It might bring excitement to their life. Okay, so it's a problem. It's a problem that they don't really want, but it's still that secret thing. People talk about making a plan to binge. I had one client who She said when her husband went out of town, that was when she binged. And she'd make a plan. She'd plan what she was going to eat. She'd go to the store, she'd buy the stuff, she'd get the takeout, whatever. She made a plan, and it was her secret. And she enjoyed it, but she didn't enjoy the aftermath of it. And I'm sure even halfway through it, she wouldn't have enjoyed it, but at the build up to it, she enjoyed it.
Something she was getting away with.
Yeah, so once that's gone, it's like there's something missing. She hasn't got that to look forward to. Sounds crazy, but
Well,
that's not just one person. A lot of people tell me that. It's also, you get a high from it, get a false high. That gives you the excitement. And it's an initial high, because after 10, 20 minutes, it's definitely not high, but you do get a high off it. Same way that you would get off of drugs, I suppose.
I'd love to say something about those two things. My understanding of the perverse excitement that goes along with The Secret is that I believe that a piece of the psychology of binge eating is a dependency conflict. And I believe that most binge eaters at some point in their life were fed in a way that was not necessarily in their best interest. A lot of them will talk about the hypocrisy of their parents, and they would tout these health values when they would do these other things. A lot of them had parents who just didn't understand what was actually healthy and who were destroying themselves with food. And a lot of them might have been parents who weren't really sensitive to when they were hungry or full and made them finish what was on their plate. Worked with a lot of people who had a brother or a sister who would take all their food if they didn't eat it quickly. There's a lot of issues about autonomy in food choice that I think underlies binge eating. It's like, you can't tell me what to eat. I'm a grown up and I can decide whatever I want to eat no matter what you think about it. You just won't know. And then that's exciting, and it's also a fixation. Like, it's part of the adolescent separation of identity. When we're young, we're kind of our parents' kids, and then when we're adolescents, we're trying to define ourselves. And a lot of times we define ourselves as the opposite of our parents, or just like to prove that they can't control us. But we really haven't taken the time to think through exactly what we want. And that's why I'm always asking people, what role do you want XYZ food to play in your life? And that's why I'm always emphasizing when I'm training you guys that it's important to stay out of the way of the client. It's really important that the client decides what they want to do. I've had clients that say, I don't want to eat anything. My food plan is just air. And I'd say, I'm sorry, I can't do that. So I think that part of that excitement is that adolescent excitement, that you can't make me, I'm growing up now, I can eat whatever I want to, and I can get away with it. I think the solution to that is to recognize that, first of all, it's not a crime, right? There aren't any binge eating jails. You can't go down to local precincts and see a guy in a cage and what's he in for? Well, I ate too many donuts. It just doesn't happen. It's not a crime. It doesn't make you a bad person. There's no reason for you to be punished if you had too many donuts or potato chips or whatever it is. And remind yourself that you are lovable just the way you are. You don't have to wait until you've arrived at the perfect weight to be lovable and enjoy life and be able to participate as an equal in our society. And then decide rationally and consciously and purposefully exactly what you do want to eat. And it doesn't all have to be healthy, exactly what role you want these foods to play in your life. And then make conscious choices about eating and try to only eat things that you would eat in front of other people. That's my long-winded way of addressing the underlying psychological conflict that I think you're observing. What do you think?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, Glenn. It really does.
How do you help them with this? What do you tell them to do?
You've got all this free time in your hands. What can you do with that free time? What differences can you make? Look at all the things that you've been missing in the past. What can you do with that free time? Can you learn something new? Can you make new connections? Can you find a new hobby? Find something that will fulfill you, something that's healthy that will fulfill you. Really, it's a bit an identity change, I think, because a lot of people see themselves still as a person who binges, even if they don't anymore. So it's changing their identity. And I've got quite a good example of that. When I left the leading weight loss company that I used to work for, I had a logo on my car, and I'd had it there for years. And it took me a long time to take that logo off, because to me, I was still that person. And I went through a period where I felt quite depressed because I was no longer that person. I took the logo off and I wasn't that person anymore. And it took a long time, not a long time, but it took a while to process that. And then I realised that I didn't have to be that person anymore. I could be whoever I wanted to be. And I started learning new skills and putting them into practice. And I had a better life after that. But I had that big label on myself that was who I am. And I think people who binge come through it and do really well and find a lot of success still sometimes have that label on themselves that this is the way they are and at some point they might go back to that.
And it sounds like you felt lost for a little while, and you had to
Yeah,
feel lost for
yeah,
a little
it
while.
was lost. What do I do? I have got nothing to do, nothing to do with my time. What do I do? After a while, you pick yourself up and say, come on, of course you can find things to do. You can move forward and you can change. This isn't you for the rest of your life. It's the same thing. They have this identity. So what I would say is start to look for evidence that you are not that person anymore. You're not that person that's obsessed with food anymore. And really build up a picture of somebody that's not obsessed with food and somebody who doesn't binge and somebody that's got a different identity.
Tell me more about that. How did that work for you? What kind of evidence did you see? How did that start to change?
With food specifically?
Well, yeah, when you stopped eating sugar, for example, I guess you're talking about giving up the identity of working for that other weight loss organization, but
Kind of two different things. But with sugar, it took a while because I didn't have total confidence that it would work, really. So I'm still kind of got these thoughts all the time. And then I think at one point I realised that, hey, I've got all this free time in my hand. I'm not obsessing about food. What can I do? I had free time at night to do things that I'd never done before. Because before I was just sitting on the couch in the living room, just doing nothing, and then dragging myself upstairs to bed because I was so exhausted. But now I had all this energy, and I started exercising, doing different sort of exercises, connecting with people that I didn't probably connect with before or not on a regular basis, and just building up a better life for myself.
do you think that the uncertainty you felt in the beginning, it's a little bit of a mountain to climb to adjust your identity like that? Do you
Hmm.
think your pig was trying to make you feel uncertain about whether you were going to go back to sugar or not because you found yourself lost and the pig said you wouldn't be able to tolerate it?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're constantly looking at the evidence that in the past, this is who I was. You're constantly reminding yourself, or your pig's reminding you, that that's who you used to be, and how is it possible that you can have changed?
When did you know, had you collected enough evidence of success that you really knew that you were over the wall, that sugar was behind you, that all that time on the couch was behind you, and that you were going to make the most of the balance of your life?
I don't think there was ever a moment like that. It just sort of naturally became who I was, just the person that didn't eat sugar. Now, don't get me wrong, Glenn, I am not perfect. There are points after that where I did eat sugar, but
You made a mistake. Yeah.
yeah, I immediately regretted it. I went to the US last year, and the people that I was going to visit had made me this special afternoon tea, but I knew in advance they were going to make it, and it was all cakes and stuff like that. But I decided in advance that I was going to eat that kind of stuff while I was there, and it was only a 5-day trip, and this is what I was going to do. And I did that, but I found it very hard when I got back,
Yeah.
and I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I would. I really didn't.
So you made a conditional rule, so you didn't technically binge,
Yeah.
and you set up boundaries for what you were going to do while you were traveling, and you found that your memories were actually better than the experience of having sugar.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can remember being in the airport at Orlando and surrounded by all these sweet treats in the airport. A Cinnabon, was it a Cinnabon or something? I had one of them. I was totally disappointed, and I'd been really building myself up for this Cinnabon. Totally disappointed.
When you normalize your blood sugar and you eat in a healthier way, over time you get addicted to that feeling and it feels very uncomfortable to destabilize it.
Yeah.
I've had no cravings for sugar since I changed my diet and I eat enough fruit and everything. I have had cravings for flour, and there was a time when I decided to do something like you did. And for a couple of weeks, I allowed myself flour at dinner on the weekends if I wanted it. I had it a couple of times, and I felt awful. Like I just wanted
Mhm.
to die.
Yeah.
And I thought, why did I ever do this to myself? Why would anybody ever
Yeah.
want to do this? I mean, I liked the first couple of bites, but otherwise I didn't really like it. I didn't eat as much as I used to. And I couldn't wait to get back to just regular eating. It was kind of a good experience. It was risky, I suppose. It was kind of a good experience because now I know that those flower highs are memories from a time when I was really malnourished. I didn't know that I was malnourished, but I was malnourished and I was trying to compensate for the malnourishment with these highs and lows from flour and sugar back then.
Mhm.
It made it easier to let it go forever after that. I just don't want it. What else have you learned from your clients in terms of how to adjust to this? What else do you think people do that gets them through this period where they're missing binging?
I think if they start to build up a really clear picture or a vision of who they are without a food obsession. So ask yourself, who are you without a food obsession? build up a really clear picture. Even just take a pen and a piece of paper and write down, who am I without a food obsession? Who am I when I'm the person that doesn't binge? What am I doing? Who am I with? What kind of hobbies or activities am I doing? What kind of new things am I learning? Who am I with? How am I influencing them? What do they think about me? All that kind of thing. Just build up a really clear vision of who you are and who you want to continue being. And just keep reminding yourself of who you are and who you want to be and who you want to continue to be and what you want in your life. Really like your big why, but you're there. Yeah.
You've done it. Would you be willing to speak personally about what that is for you? Who are you with that food obsession?
Who am I without food obsession? Well, I'm a person that enjoys learning. I'm always looking for something new to learn to improve myself. I'm a person who likes connecting with friends and family. I like meeting up with friends and family. I like making new friends. I've made quite a lot of new friends in the last few years. I think I'm a person who's influencing people in a good way. I think people would say that I'm a good role model. I know that people love me, my friends, my family.
Really important, all that. Really
Yeah,
important.
yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And I'm sure there's more.
You're checking them off as a list, but
Yeah.
I'm sure that this is an emotional thing for you. I'm sure that this feels like a much different life than you used to have, right?
Energy. I've got energy, which I never had before. I never had energy before. I used to have to drag myself up the stairs at night or drag myself out the car sometimes because that's where I used to eat in the car. But now I don't feel like that. I have energy. I want to get up in the morning.
Did you have much weight loss, or was it mostly just the relinquishment of the food obsession?
I did lose a lot of weight years ago. I lost 5 stone, which is what, 70 pounds. I think I lost that twice in my life. I just was on a continual roller coaster of going up and down. I would get to my goal weight and then I would steadily start going up and down and up and down. I kept it off for a lot of years and I kept up the appearance of somebody who was fit, healthy, and didn't binge because that was my role, that was my job. So, you don't have to be overweight to have a problem and a big problem. I just managed to balance it out because I knew how to balance it out.
How confident are you in the new person that you've become?
I don't even really have to think about being confident in that new person because I just am that person, if
Yeah,
that makes sense.
that's the whole point. We wanted to fade in the background eventually. That's the whole point.
Yeah, I don't want to say I'm 100% confident because it doesn't mean anything. I am that person.
I love that.
And sometimes when we talk about the big why, I think I don't really have a big why because I am that person, you know?
Mm, you've become the person you wanted to be.
Yeah,
And then that extends beyond food, doesn't it? Once you realize that you can relegate your impulses to a lower level in your life, and you can become the master of your impulses and the architect of your own fate, you start to have a lot more confidence across the rest of your life, don't you?
absolutely. If you can change your habits with food, then you can change anything.
Yeah, life becomes possible because you've
Hmm.
liberated your survival drive. All your life's energy is no longer tied up in food. And so now it's up to you where you want to put it, and the sky's the limit. Craft your life just how you want to craft it.
Absolutely. You can do anything that you set your mind to do.
Fiona, this has been really fantastic. Is there anything that I should have asked you about this that I didn't ask you?
I think you've covered it all, Glenn.
I have all this life energy. I find pleasure in life again. I want that for people. I want people to have that. I want them to see that life is joyous when you're done with binging. It's not believable when you're buried under these bags and boxes and containers, but life is joyous. Fiona is a terrific coach, by the way. I hope you all enjoy working with her, those of you that do. Okay, Fiona, thank you so much. This was great.
And that brings us to the end of today's broadcast of Defeat Your Cravings, hosted by Dr. Glenn Livingston. Now, if you'd like to find out more about the products and services Dr. Glenn offers to help you dramatically reduce your cravings and stop overeating in 90 days or less, please visit defeatyourcravingscoaching.com. That's defeatyourcravingscoaching.com. Thanks.